one of two of my friends had a disagreement with the other, and I remember that my friend asked me to stop talking to the other one.
You look official with the calendar behind you.
A calendar of events.
Well, today we're going to pick up on something we talked about a while ago, which is dealing with difficult people. Also, it's in here in the US, it's Father's Day weekend. And so we'll save a little time at the end to talk about a special memory. That's the plan for today. Does that sound
That's the plan.
good?
Still missing Auntie.
Still missing Aunt Lauda, who will soon be on her way. So hopefully by the next one, she'll be here. And we may get a special message from her as well. So we'll cross our
Excellent.
fingers for that. Now, I'm going to do a really quick refresher on when we last talked about difficult people. We talked about a few types of difficult people, certainly not the full list. But I think we talked about the know-it-all, the bossy person, the pessimist, and the gossiper. I think those are the four people we talked about. And we gave folks some general tips on how to deal with a lot of difficult personality types, including listening, like really listening for what it is they are saying, either through their verbal or nonverbal behavior. Being empathetic, really trying to understand things from their perspective, right? That might give you a different sense of where they're coming from. But of course, setting boundaries also is important because unfortunately, sometimes some people just have that tendency to be difficult. And no matter what you try to do to work with them, you may not get through to them. And so you have to set boundaries for yourself at times. Those were some of the general tips. I don't know if you remember anything outside of that in terms of general tips, Mom.
No, that's pretty much it. And I have to say that has helped me in dealing with difficult people. We ourselves may be difficult sometimes. That helped me a lot because being myself of a kind of, being passive and more accommodating, sometimes we forget to set boundaries when someone else is bossy or they have only their way. So things like this have helped me a lot.
Yeah, well, let's talk about, since we last talked about this, is there a specific situation that comes to mind, or maybe an example of you applying some of these tips in working with someone or talking with someone who was a little more difficult?
Well, yes, in recently I can recall a difficult situation because one of two of my friends had a disagreement with the other, and I remember that my friend asked me to stop talking to the other one. And I remember that I thought about it and I told her, I like you both, and it's something you both have to work with it because friendship is really a treasure. And I told my friend clearly, respectfully, trying to be non confrontational, just to say that we are friends. We are in the late 70s. Time goes by, and if you have a friend who, accepts you for what you are and supports you and you get along, sometimes a little difference, we should work it out. And this friend is a very strong person. I think finds her as a weakness to give the effort of making your first step. But I was clear, I like you both. Whatever is in between you two, you have to work it out. And I feel good because it had, like I said, it has helped me what we have been talking about. I put it clearly.
I wonder too, because that's a tough position to be in. You know, you obviously value both of the people involved, and it's funny how that works when there's a disagreement and they want to pull somebody else in and sort of ice out, we call the other person because they're upset with them. Have you found that age plays a difference in being able to access those type of skills a little easier? And what I mean is you said something like, we're older now. We don't have a lot of time. Like you said, the friendships you have are extra valuable because, of course, at this phase of life, you may have a lot of friends who are sick and even pass away. And time is not indefinite, right? There is a time stamp for everybody. And there might be a realization that value the time you have, try to work this thing out because, there's only so much time left. So do you think it's a little easier at this point to access, like, wait, it's not worth it, work this out?
I think so. I think so because with age, you realize you have, as we grow older or old, we have gone through a lot of things and things that sometimes you think, in my 30s, my 40s, I got so upset for this or the other and really wasn't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think we get another practical or realistic perspective when we're old.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, friendship, a good friend is something that you have to value. It takes, I understand, I also mentioned that to my friend, it takes a bit of humility, to accept, especially if we did something wrong or we are in the wrong, and to say sorry. And as you grow older, I think we appreciate that more, or it's easier because precisely we are living a day at a time and enjoy a day at a time. And it's not worth it to get mad when we are good friends in general and get along well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's difficult
Yeah.
because, a situation, especially if you have been hurt, if it's not just a disagreement on where to eat or what movie to see, is something more serious and you are hurt, it takes a bit of humility to say, okay, let's go through this, or especially to talk it, clearly, because sometimes a misunderstanding, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up good points of how others try to hurt someone else can have really deep impact. And also some people are a little more sensitive to some things, not saying that whatever was said didn't warrant the strong feelings, but some of us do have that tendency to take in criticisms, even if they're light, even like jokes that are meant to be jokes, but can really hit a core that has a strong impact. But like you say, coming back together, and I think giving up the need to be right or wrong in a situation also, but just saying, I value this friendship enough to come back to the table to say, look, this hurt me or made me feel sad or bad about myself. And I just wanted you to know that so that you're just more aware of that.
Now,
I
of course, there might be occasions, I just thought about it right now, that if
Mhm.
it's something really serious, something that happened that was serious and you can't, well, then you talk about it and say, this is it. And I guess we'll stop being friends. But I would think that would have to be something really serious.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have persons, difficult person that can be obstinate or see as a weakness to give in and say, you hurt me, but we're friends, and I'm sure I have said something that I hurt you or bothered you, and go over it. What I meant to say was exactly that: we're good friends, and it's not like we're going to live another 20 years. so so
Maybe. You never know.
So,
Uh,
like a good friend said, let's all get along.
well, and what you're talking about is boundary setting, right? If you've given someone the opportunity, you've told them multiple times about how some of their ways negatively impact you, but they continue to do it, that's a different conversation. And I know we've talked previously about what's the point where you draw the line and say this is not working. But I think the first step is letting them know, right? This behavior or when you do this doesn't sit well with me. And I'm hoping this becomes an opportunity for you to think a little bit more before you say this or do this so that that doesn't happen again, right? So you have to give them the opportunity to say, this is a thing that doesn't sit well with me. So they have the opportunity to correct it. And if you've done that multiple times and it continues, and that's a different thing you have to look at, right? And say, is this something that is worth keeping or do I have to reconsider this relationship? Yeah.
Completely.
Hmm. So I had a situation and it's kind of funny, but it also goes back to the empathy piece and the listening piece. And so I went to the store one day after work and I was very tired. It was a long day, but I had to get a couple things for dinner. So I had a handful of things, probably less than 10 or whatever the minimum is for those short lines. But the short lines were long, so I just went to a regular line. Maybe there was one person ahead of me, and then this older lady ended up behind me. And she also had like a handful of things, maybe 6 or 7 items. So then I am up to get processed. Unfortunately, one of the things I needed was something that's locked behind glass, which is a whole other conversation. It's very annoying that everything is locked behind glass. So
Absolutely.
so I felt bad because I was like, I know this is going to take a little bit of time, but their locked stuff is right in the front. So I thought it wouldn't take too long. Well, the second the lady left, another cashier opened, and there might have been one family behind the lady behind me. And so the cashier said, do you want to come to the last family? Do you want to come to my line? And the lady behind me was visibly upset, like, I should have gone next because I have fewer items than they have, and I should have gone next. Well, now our cashier is getting my item and is taking some time because she needs to get the right key, and then she thinks she has the right key and she's fumbling with the lock. So now the lady's complaining, where's our cashier? I said, she's getting me something behind the glass over there. I think she's about to get it, so it should just be a few minutes. I'm trying to calm her down. Then the cashier gets my item, has to return the keys to the manager, and comes back. By the time she comes back, the lady behind me has stewed so long that I just tell the cashier, you know what? Why don't you take this lady behind me? In my head, I'm thinking she's clearly had a rough day. Rough life, maybe. I don't know. But I'm going to take the perspective that she's had a rough life. So let's go ahead and let her go first. And the cashier's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yep, for sure. I start handing her the lady's items because at this point, my things are in the way. So I'm just like, here, just start scanning her stuff, please. Just fine. So the lady's like, she didn't even say thank you. I didn't do it for a thank you. She was just like, yes, because I should have been taken by that other. She was still hurt that she wasn't the one who was taken to the next line. So she goes around me so she can pay. She doesn't have a bag. So the cashier uses one of their bags. And she had fruit or something as one of her item. And it wasn't in one of those like plastic organic bags. So she had to pull a bag and quickly stuff the stuff in there. The stuff is rolling out of the bag. So now the lady's complaining that the stuff is not staying in the bag. She's like, this isn't working. And the cashier, as nice as she could be, was just, I'm sorry, but that's the only bag I have like this here for this. So we'll just do the best we can. So then the lady is struggling to figure out the system. Like there's some question they ask at the start of the whole thing you can bypass or whatever, but she's really struggling to figure it out. The cashier is trying to help her, and anything the cashier says she's not listening to. So finally the cashier has to come around and take care of it for her, finally get her to the screen where she can pay, and then she does her card. But it doesn't end there because she's still fumbling with the bag. So she spends another few minutes still mumbling and complaining about the bag not working and whatnot. Finally, she gets it all and then she leaves. The lady's like, that was really nice of you to let her go ahead of you. I said, look, she was having a rough day or a rough life. I don't know, maybe both. And I would much rather her move along in her day than for both of us to just have to hear her mumbling behind me, that she's having this. She should have gone to the other line, not this other family. And I find that old me definitely would have been like, I'm here. I'm also very tired from a long day. I need to get through this line. You're just going to have to wait, right? But I think I really tried to like take a deep breath and say, I don't know what this lady's gone through. And maybe it takes a lot for her to even get out. So for her to be here and have to be here longer is really disturbing for her. And it's all good. It's a few more minutes for me. It's fine. Just let her go. And funny thing is, today I went to the bank and the line was super long. And there was someone in front of me who kept looking back. And I was like, I don't know why he's looking back. Well, he turned to me and he goes, I just want you to know there was someone who was in front of me who stepped away. So he might be coming back into the line. And I said, that's fine. And he said, I just want to be courteous because I know sometimes people see someone charge in front of the line and they think they've cut the line and I don't want anyone to get upset. It's just courtesy. I said, wow, that's unusual and I really appreciate that. Like I think just being mindful of other people's energies and just being courteous. And the lady behind me wasn't very courteous, but my hope was maybe extending a little courtesy might, she might pay it forward. I mean, her attitude afterwards did not give me that impression, but I think the effort of just trying to empathize with her day and, hey, I hope your day gets better, maybe would have rubbed off a little. Maybe she would leave the store and feel a little bit of like, I need to pay it forward to somebody else. I don't know. But it also made me think of the main character from Up. You remember the movie Up?
Oh, yes, yes. The nice older gentleman.
So he's a little grumpy, right? And the little kid just like wants to hang out with him and he's a little bothered, but you understand why, right? Like he went through this really tragic loss and he's just had a really tough time re-engaging with life and takes some time, but he finally like turns around. But I think we just don't know what people are going through. And if you're in a position to step back and say, okay, I'm going to be the patient one here. Or I'm going to be the one that shows a little grace or a little understanding. I don't know who you are. I don't know your situation, but it's no major loss to me to let you go ahead of me. Just let's get you out of the store.
And that is a great thing. Empathy is the greatest thing because that's all it takes. And I know some days, like you said, you were tired. One has had a bad day too. And your first thought could very well be, I'm also tired. I don't want to be here, but I have to, and things like that. But empathy is a great thing. I think it helps a lot.
Yeah. And it's not always easy. It may be easier when you have a little more energy, but it just gives you a different perspective. It's important to step outside of our own shoes and just try to give grace to those who might be struggling a little bit.
That's very true. So that was very nice. And the older lady maybe thought, oh, maybe I was just too impatient. Yeah, nowadays, and that was another topic we had. Nowadays, people, especially young people, don't have much patience. They're used to instantaneous everything and they cannot waste any time. That's, in a way, that's sad because you miss a lot of things, I think.
Well, what's interesting is I heard something the other day that the newer generations are, which is typical, old decades come back, old things, popular things from past decades always cycle back. And I'm hearing there's this real desire from the youngest generation to go back to old things like
Good.
cassette tapes and VCR tapes and things that, well, for one, have a different quality, right? It's not this ultra sharpness that feels fake,
Exactly.
which is kind of ironic, right? With the move towards AI and this idea that there is just this, well, it's AI, right? It's this whole other
Artificial.
artificial level of
Artificial.
things. And yes, there's pros and cons to it, right? The instantaneous is convenience, and I think we've all gotten accustomed to convenience, but we're losing some things in that too. So I have appreciation for those that are going back to that, and I think there's this desire for just putting the time into things, honoring creativity and all of that. So I hope maybe that's a shift too in pulling out a little bit of that instant gratification and the need for speed, things to
Mhm.
happen so quickly. Maybe that'll show up in people's patience too, and
Completely.
kindness to one
Exactly.
another, right?
Exactly. Just coming out, talking about empathy or being gracious, coming out of a parking lot, some cars, no, this is not a racing track. This is a parking lot. But well, we have to think maybe it's in a hurry for whatever reason. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, one, I'm glad you're practicing skills and that they're being helpful for you, right? To manage some of the tougher situations, and hopefully other people have found them helpful. And if people have other tips and tricks, for sure, put them in the comments to help others who are maybe listening to, help them improve the ways they deal with more challenging folks.
Completely.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit because it is Father's Day, and I know for Mother's Day we spent some time talking about our moms and the things that we've experienced with our mothers, things we appreciate about our moms. And maybe we do the same for Father's Day, which is this weekend. Maybe by sharing a memory that you have, Mom, of your dad, my grandpa. Anything that comes to mind for you that is makes for a fun story.
Well, I'll tell you, when I think of your grandpa, he was a reserved gentleman.
He
And
was not a difficult person.
no,
Well, at
he,
least for me.
he was, well, he grew up in the, 1920s and 30s. And they say, we old people always say our times were better. Well, not necessarily, but I do recall people had more sense of, honor and honesty. There was, social codes. And I remember when I was a child, he was, of course, well into his 40s or close to 50s. And he and grandma had a very social life. They belonged to the Rotary Club. I remember, they would have conferences, things together. But he appreciated, that the always, if you will, in the family. One of the memories I recall visiting us in the States. I don't know if you remember that, but on a Christmas, I believe it was. He would love, instead of, the little dinette where we would eat informally or sitting in front of the TV, he would love to sit down in the big dining table because he still wanted to, keep the old fashioned way, if you will, of everybody sitting at the table, talking, sharing things of the day. And I remember grandma telling him, I don't know, why do you make it so difficult to eat in the big table? Why can't you eat in? And he would say, no, no, we're going to eat here. But that's, the kind of man he was. He would shortly aloud, I would tell you, he wouldn't say much, but whenever he would advise us of something, he was calm and, very practical. You would think that with just talking to you about something, we would think about it and do it or not do it. But you're young, and when you're young, I remember, of course, you think you know it all. Sometimes we don't pay attention to the good advice they give us because they have experience. But I do remember of him always dressed up, even to work, his tie and suit. I think he liked the little vests a lot. So he was always dressed up. It was other time because I'm talking about the 50s and 60s, but he was always, dressed up to go out and very mindful of the way they used to be. You follow certain moral rules and accepting. I don't remember ever being mean to anyone. He was just quiet in a way. But when he insisted of something, he would say, yes, we're going to sit down at the big table.
Which is funny because I would definitely say he was a man of routine. And what I remember of him is obviously much older. He was very particular about the times he ate and what he ate. Me, young and really not caring about schedules or whatever. But when we would visit them, I remember the little breakfast table. He would say mujer to my grandma because he's like waiting for his fruit and his cereal. And so she would be running around trying to do many different things, but he was very like, it's now time. So it's time to eat. And it was always at the table, and then she would sit down, and then we would sit down and we would have breakfast together. I'd say the other favorite memory was walking, because he walked a lot. Like you said, he was always dressed up. So he always had his sweater vest, and he also had his little golf cap looking cap. I don't know what you call those. We would go to Plaza del Sol and we would get paletas. And that was always fun because walking, I mean, when it's nice is fine. When it's a little hotter, it's like, ugh. But he loved to walk, so he walked. And at the end of the walk, of course, then we got to like walk around the shops and then get our paletas, which was fun.
Oh, he would love that.
Yeah.
But you're right. He had his schedule for doing things. He was very much into it. And another thing that was funny because I couldn't understand that, but he liked he would usually have soup, but then in the bigger plate, don't put everything in one thing. So in one little plate was, a certain vegetable, and here the meat and potato, but he didn't like everything in one plate.
Yep. Yep.
Those are ways, probably of his that was the way it was, that they would serve you one thing and then the other. The rice, for example, many people would put in the plate the meat, the vegetable, and rice. Almost every day, one would have rice and beans in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted his rice in a small plate and then the meat and vegetables in another, peculiarities that he had.
Yeah, I don't know if that was tradition or just his own peculiarity. I think it was his ways.
And he was very exact on that one. I'm sure that Tia Laura would, remember things from him, because that was another thing that now that you said his cereal and fruit, he rather have fruit than any sweets. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a sweet tooth really for
Mm-hmm.
cakes, and he might try a little bit, but he loved fruit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had good memories. And he was a little bit, obstinate on his schedule. But that's the way he was.
Yeah, that's his thing. That's his thing.
Good
Well,
memories.
good memories, good memories. And hopefully it's a good Father's Day weekend for fathers out there and
It
those who take
is.
on the father role. Well, it was a good conversation. I hope people found some of the things we reviewed useful. And again, share, in the comments if there's something else that you can think of that's helpful in dealing with difficult people or that's helped you. If there's something you disagree with, also put that in the comments. It'd be interesting to get your take on some of these things. If you liked it, hit the like button and subscribe. We have a lot more coming. So I think Aunt Lada will be here for that next conversation.
Yeah, probably.
Hello, hi, I'm Laura. I would like to make a comment about a memory, a special memory that I have for my father due to the Father's Day. There's many of those, but the one that I really have it on my heart is that time that we went to visit my sister Anna, that they used to live in Okinawa, Japan. So the three of us, my mama, my father, and I, went to spend Christmas with them. And we were on the flight, long trip, and he was offered by some drinks, some wine. He had a couple of drinks. He was really happy, very excited about the flight. Maybe it was the first flight he ever took that long distance, and he was very excited to see her other daughter, of course. So anyway, all of a sudden, he was all dressed up, with a nice suit and everything. And all of a sudden, he stopped the flight attendant when she was serving another drink. And he said, "I want to tell you something very important," to her. And the flight attendant said, "Of course, sir. What can I do for you?" And he looked at me and said, "I want to tell you that I'm very proud of this daughter. She's been wonderful to us, and I'm always blessed with her." So, of course, I felt very excited about it. It was really something special for me because he wasn't too much of a talking or recognition, even though he was really a good father, leading by example. Always putting things on the right place and very responsible. But he wasn't too much an expressive person. So yes, I have that memory about him, and I always will have him in my heart.
Let's introduce ourselves very quickly. I'm Joanna, Mom.
I'm Anna.
And we want to remind you, whether it's good, bad, or funny,
Live
live
it
it up.
up.